James, I will bring you in because you and I both are members of a group on Facebook for Alabama basketball. I don't post that much, but I do read all the posts. You're very, very involved. So let me just ask you point blank.
Sure.
Is this Alabama basketball team going to win tonight and get an opportunity at Kentucky tomorrow?
I hope they do. I want them to. I don't know right now, Gary. I don't know if they can tonight. It's a 50-50 call for me. I could see them winning and playing well, but also just with all the negative momentum that's been surrounding this program from the losing streak, 3 in a row, 6 out of 8, and then Ole Miss and Kermit Davis really picking it up the last few weeks of the season, and really Kermit Davis doing one outstanding job with the Ole Miss basketball program. Right now, my gut tells me Ole Miss is going to win that game tonight.
Let me ask you this. I'm with you, I'm picking Ole Miss tonight. I just think even though Alabama beat them by, 21 in Tuscaloosa?
And really wasn't that close.
Still, right now, this Ole Miss team is better, in my opinion. I just think Alabama's lost its mojo. And maybe they'll, I think Coach Avery's counting on them somehow getting it back tonight. But what I saw in the second half of that game at Arkansas just really left me disappointed, the lack of fight. But if Alabama wins tonight, in your opinion, will that get them into the NCAA tournament, or will they have to beat Kentucky?
I think they have to at least beat Kentucky, and they may even have to do a little more than that.
Well, they're not going to the NCAA tournament then.
No,
because even if they win tonight, they're not beating Kentucky.
Here's my thing with that, with as far as being on the bubble. If you have not done, and this is just from my past experience with the Division II selection committee at West Alabama for both football and for basketball, Gary, if you have not done enough in the regular season, you cannot have one tournament game generally to bail you out and get you in to an NCAA tournament field. So right now, if you just go with and say that Joe Lunardi and Jerry Palm are right, that Alabama is on the outside looking in, then Alabama hasn't done enough to get into the NCAA tournament off of their regular season. Then one win is not going to be even close to enough. And certainly if you beat Kentucky, which to me it's tougher to play them in the SEC tournament in Nashville than even as far as a basketball environment than going up to Rupp Arena in Lexington, because you got more, almost like Alabama football. You got more of the blue bloods at home and more of the more of a blue collar fan type of profile that comes to these SEC tournaments that don't get to go to home games at Rupp Arena. It's going to be a rowdier environment if Alabama wins today, faces Kentucky tomorrow. Then they went up to Lexington. If they beat Kentucky in that would help them a lot. But I think as far as to really solidify, to feel more secure about getting to the NCAA tournament, to me, I think they have to get to Sunday.
Well, it's not a good situation to be in. And I understand. I listened to Avery yesterday in Nashville say, we're right on pace. We thought by the third year we should be in the NCAA tournament. We were. We'd hoped to be in a little better position this year, but we lost some players. We're still in the hunt. He is certainly, James, let's say this, and we'll see what happens with this team, how this season finishes out with Avery. But I thought yesterday, James, both in his meeting with the regular media after practice, which I was able to hear his comments, and on a national radio show, that he certainly was making his case for remaining the basketball coach at Alabama. Did you get that? Did you get that vibe?
A little bit. In fact, you know what? Let's maybe play some of that audio as far as when asked Coach Avery Johnson about just the fan reaction about maybe the program going in the wrong direction. Avery Johnson had some strong thoughts on that from yesterday.
Well, I don't. That's a strong statement to say the program is not headed in the right direction. Paul, I haven't been here for 8 or 9 years. This is year 4, and we said after year 3 we wanted to make the tournament and continue to make the tournament. This season is not over yet. Sure, in some games we we thought, man, we were right there. We make our free throws. We take better care of the ball. We'll have an opportunity to win. But I'm as fired up about Alabama basketball as I was when I walked in the door. We have a 17-year-old point guard that's not going to turn 18 until April, playing against a lot more experienced quarterbacks. Some of our sophomores that had some moments last year, they're going to have some great moments this year. But, the party's not over. We still have a lot of room for growth, even during this time of the year. And we got a great recruiting class coming in. We just think we're in the right spot to hit the reset button, and hopefully we'll do it in the tournament.
Yeah, very interesting. Those comments coming from the Paul Feinbaum show on the SEC Network. And he echoed those comments when talking with reporters, basically just saying that the program is in good shape. We're right on schedule. We're not in our 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th season. We're in our 4th season. Now, here's the thing, James, and I really like Coach Avery a lot, but he talks as if being in your 4th season is still very new in the Let's be honest, and Will Wade's in trouble. I get that. But he's in his 2nd season. He won the SEC championship. 4 seasons? And let's be clear on this, too. A lot of revisionist history goes on when a coach takes over. Alabama was not in great shape when Coach Avery got here, but it wasn't in terrible shape. It wasn't like Anthony Grant had not gone to the NCAA tournament. He had. He had a couple of other teams that, quite frankly, I thought were good enough to go. One for sure that should have gone.
One that got robbed.
Yeah, and this program wasn't in terrible shape. So to be in your 4th season and be talking as if you're a brand new coach, I'm not buying that. And there are a lot of coaches. You've been through a recruiting cycle now. There are a lot of coaches that in their 4th season, they're making a run deep into the NCAA tournament, not sitting here, as James just laid out, probably having to win at least 2, maybe even 3 games to get in. So I see both sides of the coin, but here, James, I try to tell it like it is, or like I think it is, my perception of what it is. And let me just say this. This program this year, this team, in my opinion, should be an NCAA tournament team. And if it's not, this is going to be a disappointing season. In my opinion, anything short of the NCAA tournament for this team this year. I'm not saying they're a great team. I'm not saying they should get in and make a run to the Elite Eight or the Sweet 16. But this should be an NCAA tournament team. There's enough talent there. You're in your 4th year. You're coming off a tournament berth last year. And if you don't make it, it's a big step back, in my opinion.
There's no reason for this program, Gary, to be the bottom seed that's not playing on Wednesday. Just think about that. They're the bottoms, the worst team that's not playing on Wednesday.
They barely escaped the first 2 games. They're the 10th seed. You're right. 11 through 14 play the first day. And you know what's bad about it? They might have been better off being the 11th seed and getting to beat Vanderbilt up like Texas A&M did. It would give them another win.
So you at least pad your record as far as a gimme W when it comes to the worst SEC basketball team in forever, since the 50s, the last time that an SEC team, Georgia Tech, then went winless in the SEC. But you look at Avery Johnson's 4 seasons, you got a track record now. I mean, especially when it comes to a trend of, I'm not going to say tanking, but faltering down the stretch, blowing the tires down the stretch. 6 of 8 this year, 5 the year before. What was it, a 4-game losing streak or another 5-game losing streak down the stretch? 5 out of 6 his first season, another 3-game losing streak his second year. This is a trend, folks. And if you don't get the NCAA tournament this year, this certainly for me, I'm pretty much already at this point as far as questioning whether Avery Johnson's the guy long term or even short term to take this program to the next level where it needs to be.
Well, this year in particular, because that's the one we're focused on, but you're right, his very first year, they were in good shape, and then they just collapsed. Last year, they collapsed. Again, people forget They lost their final 5 games last year. And if Colin Sexton doesn't go 94 feet against A&M with an incredible play, they're not in the NCAA tournament. And then this year, you got a little surge of momentum after you beat South Carolina on the road. And then what do? You don't win another game. I mean, you lose to LSU and Auburn at home and get blown out by Arkansas on the road, and now you're right back here probably on the outside looking in. You're right, it is a disturbing trend because coaches always tell you the season is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And your goal of your team is to be playing your best basketball come March. And it seems like that's never what the case is for Alabama. And what's really disappointing this year is you look at 3 or 4 games, and we have an entirely different season. First of all, they got swept by A&M, okay, who played on the first day. All right, you lose on the road, that's one thing. But to lose at home to that team, when you control the whole game, you win that game, you win the Georgia State game, 2 games you lost at home on buzzer beaters, then you're tied with Auburn 60-60 late in the game, and you get outscored 6-0 down the stretch after you had a 13-point lead early in the second half. You win those 3 games, James, and you're in. You're in. Not to mention if you could have upset Tennessee on the road when you had an opportunity, but if you just beat A&M, Georgia State, and Auburn at home, you're in the tournament. End of story. First of all, 2 more wins in the SEC, you'd have a better seeding. But it didn't happen. And that's the fine line that we're talking about. I mean, to get into the NCAA tournament when you have 68 teams is not as difficult as some people want to make it out to be. When it was 32 teams, 48 teams, but 68 teams? So when you can't get in and you're at the level that Alabama is at as far as resources and money being spent on the head coach and facilities with a great practice facility, once again, they're about to upgrade Coleman Coliseum, a serious upgrade here in a couple of years. The NCAA tournament, I'm going to say it again. Now I'm starting to get wound up. The NCAA tournament should be the minimum expectation for Alabama basketball. Period. I'm not talking about winning a game in the NCAA tournament. I'm not talking about being a high seed in the NCAA tournament, but making it into the NCAA tournament should be the minimum expectation for Alabama basketball. And if it's not, then you got issues in your program. From the administration right on down. If that's not the expectation for Alabama basketball, and I'm going to say it on the women's side too, where they haven't been in an NCAA tournament in 20 years. If that is not the expectation for Alabama men's and women's basketball to make it into the NCAA tournament every year, and that doesn't mean you're going to make it every year, but more times than not. And if that's not the expectation, why are you playing the game? And I'll be honest with you, I'm looking at these programs and wondering, is there pressure to get into the tournament? Do they feel a sense of urgency about getting into the tournament? Let's go to the Bud Light Hotline and welcome in Tom. How you doing, Tom?
Morning, Gary. How are you?
Doing well.
I've been trying all year to figure out the basketball team, and I don't. It's not a matter of liking or disliking the participants, the players, or the coaches, or anything like that. But I mean, there has been zero improvement. Matter of fact, this turnover thing that this team is just blighted with.
Terrible.
I mean, absolutely blighted with. I can go back and I can point out 6 games that we should have won had we not turned the ball over so much.
Right.
And but here's the thing. For me, there is no when you don't value the ball in basketball, there's nothing on this team that punishes you for not valuing.
And they're not good enough to turn it over. There are some teams that are just so immensely talented that they can give away extra possessions. The thing about a turnover, it's just twofold. You don't get a shot, and the other team usually gets an extra shot. Sometimes an easy shot. If you turn it over under pressure, it's just, you're right. You can't be a good basketball team and consistently turn the ball over, and that's what they've done. And you're right. Avery said something before they left Tuscaloosa for Nashville. He said, we've been making the same mistakes all year. It's time for some new mistakes. Well, how about you say it's time for no mistakes?
Yeah, I mean,
what kind of statement is that?
He should have. I think the theme for this team, to me, I think that they should have been told over and over again from day one, especially after the fiasco at Jacksonville State. They should have been told, look, if you do the things you're supposed to do, if you play fundamental sound basketball, you can beat anybody. But you can't beat anybody if you don't. And that's the thing that should have been hard. And telling them that like you're saying, you're just not good enough to win games if you're going to play reckless with the ball. And they just, for some reason, this team don't get it. And all of them have been playing long enough to go in there on Mondays or whenever they look at film and say, you know what, I blew that game myself. Because all of them turned it over, and all of them could say that.
You know what else too, Tom, and I think that even you're kind of coming around to this way of thinking, and you've been very patient. I'm going to say this about Tom. If you're listening, Tom's a good fan. Tom, as he said, it's not personal with him. He supports the team. He doesn't call people out. But I think, too, you want accountability from your head coach. And, he did come out last week and say, I'm 99.9%, my fault and all this. But I think one thing that bugs people, we've said this before, and I think you're beginning to agree with me, is just the lackadaisical nature that this team loses with.
That drives me crazy.
And, you go to Arkansas and you just get physically manhandled in the paint. And after the game, it's like, la-di-da, now we got our backs against the wall. Let's see what we do in the SEC tournament. And I want to hear these players say, and I want to, when coaches take the job, they stand up there behind a podium and they tell you all the great things that they're going to do. And, we're going to play with effort. We're not going to, let anybody not give 100%. And our goal is to get in the NCAA tournament and make a run to the Final Four and all this stuff. And then when things don't happen, they start kind of, growing pains, and we lost this guy and we lost that guy. I'd just like to hear Avery come out and say, listen, this is not acceptable. All right. We should be a team after getting in last year that gets back to the tournament. And if we don't do that, it's a disappointing season. The expectation at Alabama is to get into the NCAA tournament. Instead, and we get it on the women's side too. We get excuses. We get now we're ready. Now our back's against the wall. Instead of just saying the truth of the matter is the fans deserve a program with the kind of money that's being spent around here on the men's and women's basketball programs. The fans deserve programs that are NCAA tournament worthy.
Well, I say this. You may disagree with this, but I say Alabama should be a perennial top 20 basketball program year in and year out. And if you're in the top 20, you're going to go to the tournament. And
no doubt.
But that's not an unreasonable.
Well, it's not unreasonable. I will disagree with you. I'll be honest with you. I would have, if you'd have said, people that know me, if you'd have told me this years ago, I'd have absolutely agreed with you. I'd have probably argued with you that Alabama ought to be a perennial NCAA tournament team that makes a deep run every year. But now I don't agree with you, Tom. I don't think this program right now is even close to being a perennial top 20 team.
No, I'm talking about expectation.
Okay. But they should certainly be an NCAA tournament team more years.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, my expectation is that we should be a top 20 team year in and year out. I know you can't do it every year, but I mean, we're talking about expectations. But look, I'm the athletic director. Let me make it. Let me take some pressure off of top 50. How about that one?
Yeah,
and,
should be.
And then you're still in the tournament.
Should consistently be a top 50 program, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not unreasonable at all at a place like Alabama. And another thing is, over the years, we hadn't gotten players that were in the state that could have made a difference to this program for whatever reason. And that hurts. But the main thing that hurts me is to hear the coach come out in a press conference and say we turn the ball over too much, and we've got to do something about it. Then come out the next game and do it again.
Oh, I'm with you. I mean, I've been hearing it all year. I mean, we've been hearing it all year, and listen, you said this earlier in the season when you called in, and you're right. Avery's not coaching them to turn the ball over.
Right.
I know they're coaching them in practice, and they're working on these mistakes. And I guess that's why I came out and said it's time to make some new mistakes, because basically what he was saying is, we beat this horse to death. But I'll tell you something else. It's still on the coaching staff to get it corrected. And how about this one, Tom? If you got guys, and he's got a deep roster. I mean, he's signed a lot of players over there. He's played 10, 11 guys. If you got guys that are consistently making the same mistakes, how about putting somebody else in there?
Well, that's exactly right there now. You've said that all along, and you're exactly right. But I'm telling you, the thing that bothers me is that, if you take these players that's on this team out of the game, they don't care because I don't think they really want to be playing that bad anyway.
Well, we're going to find out a lot tonight, and I hate to be going into the 33rd game or whatever it is, 32nd game.
I hate it when I think we don't have a chance to win. I do not. I hate that worse than anything. If I feel like, I feel pretty good if I feel like we got a chance to win. But I just don't believe it anymore with this group. Well, I love them, but I don't trust them.
We'll find out a lot more tonight. Thank you, Tom.
All right.